Hello everybody, welcome back to our Spring Boot series. Today I would like to talk about actuators. Actuators is a very interesting topic and very modern because most of the applications now they are designed with observability in mind, meaning that we should be able to look into the application in production, but the internal state. We want to make sure that we understand everything about what's happening inside the application. Since the applications are becoming bigger and bigger with a lot of components, so we need logging, tracing, metrics around the application, and when we connect everything, we can check what's happening inside. This is a subject that in further videos I will return to, but today I would like to start with actuators, which is something that Spring Boot already provides, and it can be quite useful to troubleshoot an application without even to stop it or even debug it. Spring Boot allows us to verify and check and analyze its internal state by using an API. That's okay, let's see it. It's the fastest way for you to learn. So the first thing I'm doing, and since my previous lesson was about security, I just comment the dependency about security to make sure that it's not asking for a login and password every time. I'll return to this subject security later in more advanced videos after I cover simple things like Hibernate, beans, dependency beans, and things like that. Then I will return again to logins, unless someone asks me to provide some videos about, for instance, how to create a common, let's say, username and password. I can, let's say, skip for a while the thread that I have in my mind for all the videos that I want to create, and if someone has a kind of urgency for that, I don't mind to provide one or two videos to explain into more detailed security, like a regular username and password using a database or in memory or even a file. But okay, let's focus now on actuators. So the first thing that we should do, like the other things we did for Spring Boot, is just to add this dependency, Spring Boot Starter Actuator. And Actuator will provide us an API that we can use, a REST API that we can use to access some internal states. Let's see step by step so you can understand all the things that you can do with this Actuator. By the way, I will not provide at this time how to collect metrics using systems, for instance, like Prometheus, which is quite popular. I mean, if you want to collect metrics from your application, there is a server called Prometheus that is quite used, that connects to your application, and Spring Boot is very friendly of these systems, and you can connect metrics and see nice charts and things like that. I have that planned for I can tell you now how much videos will I provide before that one, unless you ask me to. It's easy to install and easy to use, but I think it's not an urgent matter. So I'm targeting videos with core things like database services and things like that. But be free to ask in the comments. Maybe I take a few time and provide you a simple, at least demo about it. I use it and I'm accustomed to use it when I develop things like OpenTelemetry and things like that. So it shouldn't be very difficult for me to show you a video about that. Because I'm touching this subject because actuators and somehow telemetry and servers like Prometheus, they are somehow related. And when I say somehow, yeah, it's strong somehow here. Okay, so we add this dependency here, like Spring Boot Starter Actuator. And now, let's see what we can do. So I will just start the application. Let's see, application is running okay. So you can see that it says exposing one endpoint beneath this path actuator. Of course, this actuator is under your application. Remember, you can have multiple applications in the Tomcat that is running our Spring Boot application. At the end of the day, we have a server called Tomcat. Inside Tomcat, you can have more than one application. In our case, our application is called Finances, and you can see here on the properties that we define it here, like this, at port 9000 here. So this is our application, but you can have other application on the same time Tomcat. It's not common to to have multiple applications on the same Tomcat. In Spring Boot applications, we should have one application per Tomcat, so we can create a kind of a microservice architecture. So, but let's return to our actuators. The application is running, so let's see what happens when we access that URL. So let's see first our users. Okay, it's still working. It's returning our users that exist in the database. Now let's add actuator. Okay, okay, it's not working. The application is not estimating for error. Maybe it should be working. To understand. Okay, my mistake. It's not users, of course, actuator like this. So this is the ones that are provided by default. There are others that I will explain in a moment, but by default, this is the URL that you can see. And you have this one called health. It's a way it's a display about if your application is running or not. And you can check using this. You can see here that we have our address, and then we can put words after the actuator, which are different endpoints for different subjects. And there are several of them. You can have health, info, metrics, loggers, thread dumps, beans. There are a lot of them. I don't know many, maybe 13 or 14. Sometimes one or other appear as new, so somewhere around that. But you have a lot of different subjects that you can access inside your application. Okay, this is the by default. It shows you the health because it's useful for any application. Imagine that you have a monitoring system and you want to check if your application is running or not. So you can always use this address and ping it. You can call it, and let's call it. And you can see that it's status up. So meaning it's running, okay, our health. And if you refresh while the application, okay, this is because I did something that it's not, I'll explain in a moment. Internally, it's a surprise, but usually you should always see up. But there is some probability of you see down because I create something that is a custom health. But by default, you should see up unless something is wrong in your application. Okay, so let's see others that we have access. Let's say if you want to something like metrics, and it says, okay, you cannot see metrics here. Why? And then that's where the configuration starts. So again, we should return to application properties. And for you to dominate Spring Boot, you have to be comfortable of adding properties in the file. Most of the Spring Boot things are done by configuration. So if you want to see others actuators, we should allow this. We should write management endpoints web exposure include, and when you use this, you can see all of them. If you want just a few of them, you can use something like this. Here I'm choosing that I allow for the health to be available info or metrics. There is even one that is called exclude rather than include, that you can, okay, I want all and exclude, for instance, let's say metrics. So all of them will be available except this one. But let's just comment, we want to see all of them, but you have both options. Okay, so let's return to our, so we should expect to see now, and you can see now that when you click metrics, there's a lot of information that you can collect in JSON. Ready time, started time, active, JVM, size, memory allocated. You can see all kinds, even Tomcat sessions expired. There are a lot of information that you can collect and use in systems like Prometheus and others, where we can see nice charts or even create alerts. Imagine that you know that your, for instance, let's say this one, JDBC connections idle, or max connections or things like that. You can say, okay, I can handle 50 connections. If it's reaching that number of connections, I want to be alerted. And you can ask, why is connections here? This is this Spring Boot, because we are using an in-memory database H2, which, by the way, can be integrated with the Actuator. It's quite nice. Some of the systems inside Spring Boot can participate in the Actuator. It's not only the application itself, but even components that we use inside the Spring Boot are integrated with Actuators. That's why you see some metrics here that are not Java related, but they are JDBC related. That's because we are using the H2 database in our project. Other ones that we can see here, let's say I want something like beans, which is the beans that we instantiate when the application starts. We have our beans. For now, I know that I didn't explain very deeply what are beans, but for now consider the class where we put the component or the service annotation or the controller annotation, repository annotation. They are beans. There are other types of beans that I will return to in other videos, but for now you can check this out. Of course, internally, Spring Boot contains a lot of other beans, and you can see all of them here. One of the advantage for these beans, it's good for troubleshooting, because when you create some of the beans, they should be here somehow. I don't remember the names of ours. Let's take one here, like this one, uses REST controller. Let's see what is internal name. We should have something like that. And you can see here the bean REST, user REST controller, and it belongs on this file. And you can have alias, the scope, it's a singleton. You can see all kinds of information about the bin. So it's a really good place for you to troubleshoot. If you think, okay, I configured correctly my bin, why it's not working? You can use an actuator, click bins and check if it's here. If it's not here, it means that Spring Boot just ignored it or couldn't find your bin. Maybe you are doing something wrong. Maybe it's your annotation, or you forget the annotation, or other. But you start with a kind of a path to find the issue behind your problem. Okay, there are other ones. Let's say, for instance, loggers. You can go to the Spring Boot site and check which ones exist, and you can see here the log. And it's really nice because you can connect using to this API and get the log for your application. This is the configuration of the log. It's not the logs itself, but it's the configurations that are associated with our application. Let's see other ones. So if there are problems, I don't know if we can see any information here, like thread dumps. I think how to write through these, I think. Nope. Maybe just one. Maybe it's singular. I don't remember by heart all of them. Nope. Maybe this one, it's not working, but it should because it exists. Thread dump. Ah, okay. I don't know what was my mistake, but okay, you can see here information about the threading on the Spring Boot, and there are a lot of different kinds of the actuators that you can use. The main idea is just now you understand that you have a lot of different ways to check the internals of your application. So I want to return now to the health. And when we wrote health here, usually it goes into the systems inside and ask about their health. And they should implement a kind of a bin to return this. I will return to this later. But for now, let's say you have a class and with a specific method that will be called by the actuator to check the status of your application. But one thing that we can do is create our own bin. And how to create our own bin? We can just add this component. When we add this annotation, Spring Boot, when it starts, it will look for classes which contain this annotation. And when it contains the annotation, it puts in memory. And most of them that you can create will be handled by the Spring Boot if you implement specific interface or you have specific additional attributes on annotations that you can add to your methods. In this case, I'm saying I'm implementing the health indicator. The name is already saying it all, right? And this is my name, but this is a bin. I'm creating a bin, meaning this is my bin, my health indicator, implements this one, and Spring Boot automatically will look for implementations of this interface in their bins repository. And if they are there, it will execute this method every time you call on the URL the method. And in this one, I'm just created a check components, and you can see that I'm doing a random. And if it's bigger than 0.2, it will be okay. It means it will be up, but every 5 times or at least on average, it will fail. That's why previously you were seeing the down there because it was similar. The application was okay. I was just lying to the application. It means that you can create your own checking here. You can check if specific files exist, if the connections are working, if a specific system is up, and you can use that to check your components. And then the thing that you should do, you take the result and you can even customize the output. You can say, okay, if it's up, I want to write this. You can write whatever you want. You can put several details and you say, okay, this message finance service is running smoothly here. I verified 42 accounts, whatever that means. Okay, or if it's down, if it's the service are not up, meaning that there's a false here, I will say, okay, it's down. The database seems unreachable. I couldn't verify any account, and I even suggest check the cloud database connection, something like that. You can provide as many details as you wish. But the question that you can say, okay, that's there. Why? When I click health here, I'm not seeing that. Again, we should go to our application properties, and of course, there is a specific one that I'm sure that I provided here. It's this one. I'm uncomment now, where we have management, endpoint, health. There's a specific one for health, show detail always. And I want to show all the details. So I will show all these details, including the other components that are being analyzed by Spring Boot that we weren't seeing before. So let's see, now execute our health here. Refresh. And you can see, I'll just put pretty print here. And you can see that the database, okay, I didn't touch database on that method. It's because the H2, it's in our application. So it says, okay, it's the H2 and it's valid. It queried the database and the database implement also a bin like this one. And it said, okay, everything seems nice. You have disk space. It's another one. It's up. I have free space in my F drive here. And these are the ones that we created, like it's up, finance service running smoothly, that's the one we created, account verified 42, we can create, you can see that we can put different details here, as many as you want, okay, and then there is the ping of the application, and there is other things that SSL, that it's included in Spring Boot, so you can see the details of the health, and you can even customize it. Other thing that we can do with this, it's the info. Let's see what info returns. So if I write here info is quite useful for monitoring systems, and I'll show you why. When you click info, it's empty because by default it's protected. We can define what we want for the info, but it hides everything unless we explicitly say, okay, you can access the information. And for that, yeah, you are guessing, we can say something like this, but I'll just comment this one. And you say, okay, no, management info, environment enable, yeah, true. Okay, I want the info to be available from outside. So when we refresh, it's still empty because we didn't define what we want to show. And we can define it using like this. We just create this property, start with info, and after that, we can do whatever we want. And every time we use the dot, there will be a sub property inside the JSON. Let's say finance 1.0, like this, and let's play. You can even add a different one like info, app description, why not? Finance API, like this. Let's see what happens. Let's wait for a little bit for the refresh here. Okay, this refresh, as you remember, if you saw my previous videos, you just have to add starter dev tools, and they automatically start to refresh your application without the need to stop and start the application. Okay, so let's now do the info again. And you can see now that we app, name, version, description, and you can follow as many attributes as you wish, the ones that it should be available for their applications. And this is really nice because you can use monitoring systems to get the real name of the application. You don't have to define the name of the application on those systems. You can ask to the applications about their name and their version, and you can display that on metrics and similar in those kind of systems. Okay, so I think I explained everything that I want on this video for actuators. I hope this is really useful for you. As I said previously, observability is a big trend. There are a lot of books, articles about it. So, and Spring Boot out of the box already provides, I think, a very nice environment and configuration that you can use for observability. I will promise that in a future video, I will create an external system like Prometheus, download it in a Docker image or something like that, that will connect to our Spring Boot, and you can see nice charts with all these metrics. But for that, I think we need to put some information in our data, create additional beans, do some requests so we have real business metrics to explore and not just JVM memories and thread dumps and things like that. So I hope you liked this video. I hope it was useful for you. Please subscribe my channel, share it, and you are always free to propose subjects that you want to be discussed here or presented in a more deeply way. Something I will continue with this series with starting beginner, then intermediate, and I hope to reach the cloud, where we can build nice things as if you were in the cloud using Dockers, configuration managers, load balancers, which, by the way, are integrated in Spring Boot. You won't need to install nothing external. Everything is in the Spring Boot starter. So, hope to see you in my next video. Thank you for watching.